What's up, guys? Hunter and Matt here from Team Misfit, here to talk to you today about the competitor program. So if you haven't seen over on the other page, our GPP program, did a little video talking about why GPP. We explained the program a little bit to give you some context as to why and how, kind of all the nuts and bolts. We're going to do the same thing here today with the competitor program. So we'll start right off. Sure, let's define kind of what the competitor program is. It's not quite as definitive as GPP, where we define that, the competitor program. Who's it for? What's it kind of what's behind it?
All right. So essentially what I have here is that we have a group of people who are looking to follow Misfit Athletics at their gym. And they realize that through our videos and through our posts that we've said, like, hey, this Misfit Athletics blog is for, that back when we had regionals, that top 100, 150, 200 athlete. And that you could 100% modify the blog to your affiliate, but some gyms are like, I don't know what the right dose is. How do I follow along and make sure that I'm getting people a good stimulus and good training, but I'm not beating them into oblivion? Because the way we write our blog is it's designed for an athlete to have, 90 minutes, 2 hours, 2.5 hours of freedom to fit in 3 or 4 pieces.
Yeah.
Where, that's great for those athletes who want to be professional athletes, but for the general populace, like, that dosage is a little too much. So they're like, What is the best way for me to follow along? So we've been selling affiliate programming for, I think, going on 5 years now. And one thing that was important to us is that we gave you guys the ability to have a appropriate dose of programming for an affiliate level athlete. So we write this with the fittest affiliate athletes in mind, but not necessarily the highest level competitor. We're not, necessarily writing it for the China Chos and Travis Williams of the world. Even though they're doing a very similar workout, this is now at a level that's appropriate. That's still going to give you a great dose of the movements you need to be good at in order to be successful at the competitive sport of CrossFit, but at a level that's more appropriate.
Yep, absolutely. So with that program, you're still going to get the 3 training pieces a day. So GPP, you're getting 1 to 2 depending on the day. The competitor program, you will get 3 training pieces every day. In addition to that, you'll get your warm-up mobility recommendations, descriptions for all of that stuff. But those 3 training pieces are designed to be fit into a class that we say no less than 90 minutes.
I would agree with that.
If you want to do all 3 training pieces in a structured class, we'll get into kind of talking about how to run this class later. If maybe your gym is kind of just has the 1 hour model, our affiliate, we have a 90-minute class in the middle of the day for Hatchet, basically, which is what we call the competitor program at our gym. But we'll get into more of that later. So yeah, like you said, designed for gyms that maybe have members who like a little bit more, gyms who like to have those training cycles planned throughout the year. So if you're not familiar with the Misfit Athletics blog itself, we have 4 training cycles each year, and then basically like an open prep cycle, with kind of the culmination of the yearly program being the open. And then we restart the program afterward with cycle 1.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, don't get me wrong. So a lot of our clients, people who ask us, like, what is the programming for? Which one should I select? It goes back to what's the vibe at your community like? Is your gym someone that, you have this group of competitors who like certain styles of competitor programming, and you want your gym to have one cohesive program that, grandma can hit the workout and so can your top, 100 athlete. We want to be able to take the same class together. So the biggest thing is that, and as affiliate owners, we recognize that you don't want to create a rift in your gym where there's like certain people in the corner doing special programming, and then there's someone over here doing something else, and there's someone over there doing another program. We're really just trying to build that community so that everyone feels like their program is the same program that everyone else is doing and that everyone sees benefit from it.
And just like any program, this, although, the name is competitor program, it's still absolutely scalable down to the lowest level of fitness. Just given an experienced coach who can scale appropriately, anybody can still do it. So just because it says competitor doesn't mean that everybody doing the program needs to be a competitor or, frankly, even a high level athlete at all.
No, absolutely
we can
not.
Still cater this to the kids all the way to grandma.
So the biggest point there to be made is that when you see this programming, you're going to see stuff that looks like, all right, well, 1% of my gym can do this RX. And, one of the old adages I always love to hear is that we program for the best and scale for the rest type of thing. So when you get your programming, you get this dose of what we want you guys to do, but we also give you the context for how to perform this, or the idea behind it, so that maybe the workout says 4 rounds of 20 chest to bar pull-ups. Maybe that's what your best athlete needs. More athletes are going to need maybe 3 sets of 10 of chin over bar pull-ups, and we describe like how we want you to approach that. So we want you to be able to do pull-ups in no more than 3 sets. So we scale accordingly so people can get the right dosage, because when these programs are written, they're written with intent. It's not just throw something at the wall and hope it sticks. It's built on a progression, built on skill development, built on getting stronger and fitter at a dose that's appropriate and gives you essentially the right dose, which is huge.
And we include that for the most part in the descriptions, kind of give the intended stimulus, whether that's breaking down, how many sets we think this 20 chest to bar pull-ups, like your example, should take, what kind of level of intensity this piece should be. It's a steady state for 20 minutes. It's a burn it down for a 3-minute nasty workout. We give that to you just like we do in our other programs. So let's talk about how. So we talk about this a lot through Misfit Athletics. Some of this, if you're really familiar with that program, will sound familiar, but for those who don't, let's talk kind of the structure of the program, how we build it.
So one thing that I thought we did really well as Misfit Athletics early on is we realized that the sport of CrossFit could be essentially attacked the same way another team sport could be built. For example, the Open would be like our season would be no different than like the NFL season. So you have, you've practiced all these things all year.
It's our sport-specific season.
Now you have a demonstration of what you've worked on the entire off season. But as soon as that's over, we go back to the nuts and bolts. So you see like professional athletes go back to working on their conditioning, trying to get stronger, making sure their body's healthy. It's no different than what we do in cycle 1, where we're, developing slow speed strength. So our squats, our deadlifts, our presses, we get better at the machines again because, sometimes it needs to be separated out to really focus on one element. So it's cool about our years that you can see that the cycles progress and build on one another, which is something that's really important to a lot of gyms because skill development takes a long period of time. And honestly, you need to repeat things over and over again to develop that skill or develop that strength. So you can see that occur throughout the entire, 12-month training period. Athletes who start the year maybe with being able to link 3 chest to bar pull-ups are now able to link 10 chest to bar pull-ups after running a 400 as fast as they can because they've gradually built up through the entire year. So the biggest thing I think a lot of people gravitate towards is that like test and retest and that progression throughout the year, and they can see it. It's very obvious.
Yep. We find a lot. People really like the structure, kind of the logical nature, not saying that the GPP program isn't logical. We talk at length about that in the other video, but members can really see, especially from a week-to-week basis, okay, I did my 5x5 back squat last Monday. This week I can expect to do my 5x5 a little bit heavier than last week. And I have a very obvious metric for improvement. Although, you might not increase that weight every single week, just in that example, but there's a very obvious progression to the strength, largely to the conditioning, especially early on in those cycles where it's mostly like aerobic or machine-based. You're running repeats and stuff like that, as well as the gymnastic stuff. It's 10 sets of 5 strict pull-ups this week. Okay, 10 sets of 6 next week. It's very logical, very progressive, very linear in nature. So, and a lot of people like that. They like seeing the test 1 week, run a 6-7 week squat cycle, and then they see a 5 to 20 pound PR depending on your fitness, and that is confirmation that the program is working. We like that. And that a lot of gyms
it's also a really
gravitate
exciting
toward
thing
that.
for your affiliate. I mean, if you know that you're building up for 5 weeks, that you get this big thing, you can essentially, if your gym has like a newsletter or you have, social media that you use at your gym, it's like, all right, guys, get hyped for test week. And you guys can make that a special thing that occurs multiple times a year because some gyms, and not all, but some gyms decide that the Open is going to be that like 5-week showcase where you kind of demonstrate what you've done all year as fitness, or, you pepper in your occasional benchmark. But what's really nice about this is that you have, somewhere between, if you're doing the competitor, you have 15 tests that you do over a week period. Then you train for 6 weeks and you get to do those same 15 tests again. And then you have, so say you improve on 11 of the 15. It's like, holy crap. Like this is evidence that didn't take 2 years to figure out. It took me 6 weeks to get better at one thing. Like that's exciting. And that builds momentum with the athletes where they want to be, wow, if I'm consistent and I keep working, I get better and I get better. Everyone is looking for that, like that feeling you get when you hit a PR, and it's really cool that this happens in a week-long stretch where you've put all the work in. Now it's demonstrate that it's actually paying off.
And those retests are not limited strictly to the lifting either.
No,
we retest metcons, benchmark conditioning pieces, like your standard, like might retest your 1 mile run time, like the very basic raw conditioning pieces all the way to specific Metcon, more CrossFit-y style workouts. So yeah, a lot of people like that. Let's talk about a little bit about modification and intensity here. The next bullet point.
So like you mentioned early on, we have the ability to run a 90-minute class that runs from 3:30 to 5 days a week at our gym.
And we just have that one class. All of our other classes are 1 hour long.
Yeah, that's our only longer class of the day, and that allows people to perform these competitor-style classes. But what's nice about that is it affords the coach and the athletes the appropriate time they need to warm up, focus for 10 to 20 minutes on a piece, then recover some before they go right into the next thing. One big mistake we see all too often, especially early on when we didn't have affiliate programming or it wasn't as widely advertised by us, is that people would be like, oh, okay, like I got to fit the 6 pieces on the Misfit blog into my hour-long class. And it literally was like someone wrote an hour-long timeline and said from 0 to 10, do this, 10 to 20. And it just ends up being, an hour at 75% intensity instead of really knocking things out of the park. And to me, still to this day, the thing that's most important that I want to see it with any of my athletes, whether that's the oldest member at the gym who's the least conditioned or the fittest athlete, so I want them to see them to pour their heart out and really work as hard as they can because their effort is more important than their volume.
Right. Yeah, there will be days where 1 or 2 pieces will just knock our hatchet folks right on their ass, just knock them flat, and that third piece will either need to be modified by the coach for intensity. We'll change it from what was previously a higher intensity piece to something more skill-based, or we're going to say, hey, your focus on this piece is the pull-up, for example. So I want you to go a lot slower through these first 2 movements and focus on your pull-ups on the next movement. So there's still, just because there are those 3 pieces written does not mean you always need to do those 3 pieces.
They give you an idea.
It is a template.
Yeah, exactly. You have the option now. If you look at those pieces, like Hunter said, you see those first 2 things, you're like, wow, my class looks like they got a really good dose of fitness, and maybe something in class you decide to devote a little bit of skill work towards, and now you only have 15 minutes at the back end of your class instead of the half hour you originally planned for, and you realize you can't run that 20-minute AMRAP you're supposed to. Well, maybe you glean that one portion is really important. Like maybe you have some sandbags and people haven't played with sandbags, and they should spend 10 minutes learning how to shoulder a sandbag. That's an excellent opportunity that gives people a chance to practice something that maybe they wouldn't otherwise because they wouldn't have supervision or maybe they weren't confident with it. It allows them to practice something they're not good at in a manner that's kind of organized and controlled, and they get coaching feedback. And even though we're not getting that 20-minute AMRAP we wanted to get, they're still gleaning some fitness from it. And like we said before, they're already tired or beat up from what we've already done. So it's not like they didn't train for that day.
Sure.
Oftentimes people just try to cram too much and don't realize that the return on investment gets diminished. Like the more you try to cram inside of that hour to 60-minute period, the less adaptation that's going to occur because people can't pour 100% effort into it.
Yep.
And a perfect example of this is we have an athlete at our gym named Max Bragg who would take affiliate class, and he'd only take affiliate class 4 to 5 days a week, and finished 2 years ago in the Open in the top 150 in the entire world doing nothing other than class. And he's competing with athletes who do full-time training schedules 2 to 3 hours every single day, and he was coming in.
Works a full-time job, comes in, does the evening class, and just absolutely sells out every single time. He's got, I don't know how he gets Fran Lung after every single workout, but he does. But it works.
He's just got the right mindset. I mean, one of the things that I try to convince athletes early on when I work remote coaching is that yes, it's sexy to do all that volume and it's cool to have this whiteboard where you write 7 different things on, but that's just one part of training. You need to be focusing on hitting the things that you're not good at really, really hard. And then the rest of the time is meant on skill work, developing your strength, practicing movements, recovering. That's what's more important.
And one thing I will add though is that we run that hour and a half kind of competitor style hatchet class in our gym. A lot of those members come in because that's a convenient time during the day. Yep. So that's just when they're coming in to get their class. They are not necessarily athletes who need more volume. Sometimes they like it, but they don't
fun.
need
they
it.
Enjoy it, yeah.
But there are still a good chunk of our athletes that we scale regularly in this workout. So just because the title of the class is a competitor class or whatever you call it at your gym does not mean that these people need to be doing it RX, do not need to be doing the same volume. You still have a responsibility to scale your athletes for intensity to meet the stimulus of the workout. We've got one member that I can think of off the top of my head that has muscle ups, quote, ones and twos at a time. That does not mean that when a workout comes up with sets of 5 muscle ups, that they're going to be when Amanda comes up, that they're going to be doing that RX. Give them a band, give them something to scale that workout. Just because it says competitor class does absolutely not mean that your athletes need to be doing everything as prescribed. It is a template, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there are certain athletes that because they come in at 3:30, it works best for their schedule. They hit the workout then, and they decide after 2 pieces, like, I'm good. I mean, we talked about in the GPP video there. Every once in a while, we'll take affiliate class, and maybe we do the lift, and then we're like, man, that crushed me. Maybe it's the Misfit Clean Complex is the lift in class, and everyone knows how that feels. You do that, and you're like, I'm good. Like, I don't need to do anything extra.
That was both my lift and conditioning for the day.
Yeah, so I mean, monitoring that is important. Like, one thing that we can talk about in this video as well is that, we give you this template of 3 pieces. Feel free to change up the order or change up how you approach them. Like, we'll do this in our hatchet class often where, the traditional model, that like black box model is like lift, then Metcon, then accessory. Like, every once in a while, we'll start with the accessory work and then do the lifting second and finish with the conditioning, or we might put the conditioning first and the lift second. Like, mix it up. Variety is definitely key in this. And every once in a while, like, even though we give you this template, feel free to, if it makes more sense to move things around, by all means, move things around. I can think of nothing different than what we did with Austin yesterday, where we decided before we squatted, we were going to do a workout with light squats in it to kind of warm up and get our hips loose. Like, it worked great. So feel free to make that modification on your own as well.
Yeah. So you kind of started talking about it. How do you run this class at the gym? What do we believe is kind of the most effective way to run this class? And I'll tell you right now, there's no one-size-fits-all answer, but let's talk through a couple ways to make the most out of this competitor program. So,
I mean, to me, it's just making sure that, you start with a good warm-up, then you decide kind of the order you want to go in, and your warm-up should be definitely dictated on what you plan on doing there next. But from there, you give them the appropriate amount of time. So in your mind, set things out with our coach's sheet that we give out every single month. You have the idea to
plan ahead of time.
How long should this take? And then give yourself a few minutes on either side, knowing that it's going to take time to take barbells up. People are going to change into equipment, all that stuff. So you set aside the time you need for these 3 pieces, and then you have to piecemeal in terms of how much extra time is there? Is there skill work time in this? Is there time or should I knock a round off this because I want to focus on a skill work before this? So it's very, just a general idea. It's a great program to develop very high-level fit athletes, but at the same time, it's important that you take those few seconds to really figure out what your focus is for the day. And something we talk about with our classes all the time is, what are you trying to glean from this piece? Like, are you working on your gymnastics? Are you trying to improve your conditioning? Are you terrible at transitioning? Are there other factors that you're not good at? Those are the things we want to make sure that we dial in and talk with our athletes about. So, you don't always deliver the same message. So, like, for example, let's say Tuesdays are snatches. You don't do the same boring snatch workout snatch warm-up, for 6 weeks. You change the focus. People get certain things to pick out of it, and that allows them to grow as athletes because they hear that there are many different things to focus on, and they can pick the one that applies to them best.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you cannot, talking a little bit more about timing, if you cannot run a 90-minute class, either that your gym does not have a 90-minute class blocked out anywhere, you just have the 60-minute kind of the standard class model. Couple things you can do is, one, the lift and the Metcon are typically, or the lift and the conditioning piece can typically be done in that 1 hour structure. It will be, a lot of times it will be a tight class, but we run a pretty similar model here at our affiliate, our Portland affiliate. We typically do a lift and then a conditioning piece, try to program that such that they kind of complement each other, so it's pretty easy to go from one to the next.
Easy. Yep.
So if you only have that 60 minutes, you can easily fit those 2 in, and then an option is to kind of make an extra credit board where you've got the programmed extra piece. Members can come in and do that before or after class, kind of on their own, if that's something that you allow at your gym. But what you do not want to do is say, I have 3 pieces, I have 60 minutes. We're cramming all 3 pieces.
I'm always in favor of when you have that extra credit board, that people have structured work to do outside of class. So like, all too often, people will take that open gym period and just do whatever they find to be the most fun. And while that's great, I mean, it definitely builds good camaraderie in the gym and people enjoy coming to your gym. Sometimes the people that want to get better at fitness need to know that this is the structured stuff you have to do. And that's not necessarily always be fun. But at the same time, if you are looking for an additional piece, it's better to have something that's a little bit more structured and planned ahead than just to randomly do power cleans every single time you want to do something extra, which is, definitely fun, but could often lead to holes in your fitness where you neglect rowing or you don't like running or
right. And just because it says extra piece in the program, the extra that we program is still a thought out, structured piece. It's not just like, here's a random accessory piece for you to work on. So like you said, it is good to have that extra piece and also know that it fits within the larger scope of the overall program. So I'll ask you, we talked about this, monitoring the dose, basically the overall volume of the class for like your members.
Yeah, it's super important to me that when you are teaching a class that you watch the body language of the athletes in your class. I mean, especially with something like this where you have that third piece that could potentially push someone past the point where they're comfortable or you're giving them a little too much and they're not getting enough time to recover, or, it just ends up beating them up. Watch the vibe in the class. Are people dragging? Are people not moving from what you just did and are cleaning their stuff up? Are they flat on the floor on their back, like still sucking wind after the workout and you have 15 minutes left? Like, don't feel like you have to cram something in there. Like, all right, guys, today we're going to go walk for a half mile and we're going to talk about important like recovery strategies to help you train better next time or allow you to be able to do that third piece. The biggest thing is just making sure you read the room and you understand that like more is not better. Again, if I could put that on like a t-shirt and wear that to every single class, it would say that more is not better. More is just more. Like, don't feel like you have to have that third piece. There are so many times, and I think of like, we have, a few games athletes that train here regularly. We have Cody Mooney out there who every once in a while will go, yeah, I'm good. Like, I did my conditioning. Like, I know I probably have 2 more things, but there are going to be days where I feel like I have more energy and I can hit an extra piece. And there are going to be days where one, and I'm good. That's it for me today. Yep. And it should be no different for your members. I mean, if you have that opportunity and there are certain people in the group that want to do the extra piece, well, good. You group up a few of them together and you say, go for it. Here's what it is. And a few of you, like, you're not ready for any more? Well, here's what you can do instead. So you give people the option to essentially take their classes, but understand that the dosage needs to be person to person. Not everyone's going to be able to handle 3 pieces every single day. Right. It just ends up being too much.
So last thing we'll hit on and kind of the how to run this class. Excuse me. We include some equipment that might be outside of what a gym might have enough of to run a class. So ski ergs, assault bikes, even us, we only have 5, some depending on maintenance issues, 5 assault bikes up and running, and we have a hatchet class, our competitor class that needs that has 10 athletes. So couple options. Always feel free to modify the workout to maybe make it like a partner, whether that means like waterfall style, turn it into an interval. I'm proud to say that the other day we had a 15-minute AMRAP with an assault bike in it that I just wasn't comfortable letting everybody do the individual version, so I turned it into like a team, or like a teams of 3, basically like an interval. So you were getting 2-to-1 rest, and it was effective, to say the least. So
yeah, I mean, I feel like everyone in that class that knows that when an interval, or anybody at our gyms knows that interval is coming, like, oh no, like I get to go harder now because I get rest. Like, there's no reason not to push because I just rested for however long. Yeah. So, intervals are a great way to get through big classes and allow you to run some of these things where you might have limited equipment like sandbags or ski ergs. Yeah,
definitely. And yeah, if you're not comfortable, or your members think like all of a sudden if we change the workout, it's different. Like, if there's one surefire way to make a workout more miserable, it's to make it shorten it up and add rest, and tell people to send it, and they will still get the desired stimulus. Again, kind of using the stimulus, you have to look at the workout, see what the desired stimulus is, and if you can modify it to still keep that general stimulus in mind, then you're still doing it right. So feel free to modify things, especially for equipment limitations. We want your members to get exposure to unique equipment and not just always substituting, okay, instead of assault bike, we're going to row. Instead of sandbag cleans, we're always going to power clean. Like,
yeah, get creative with it. One of the things that you'll see, and we were talking about this earlier, is that like when you go to the CrossFit games and you have the athletes warming up for their event, they don't have like parallettes and 200-pound kettlebells underneath the stage. They have barbells to deadlift and plates to do handstand push-ups on. Like, the beauty of our sport is that you can modify things and you can get a similar stimulus with a very similar movement. So like, your example, you don't have sandbags, squat cleans or touch and go squat cleans or hang squat cleans. You just find a way to make it a little bit different. And that, when you modify it, you change the way you do it every single time, you're going to find that you have success. And you give people a very varied dose, even if you don't have the specific piece of equipment. Because, not everyone has the unlimited budget to get whatever they want. Sure. You have to work with what you have. And, it doesn't make sense to say if, the program was like 2 air runner repeats, like most people don't have an air runner, but you can get a very similar stimulus if you go outside and you run on your own 2 feet. Like, that'll be effective.
Yeah. And we keep in mind, we do not have all the equipment that we can, program for a large class for. So we even kind of modify our own program. The program is designed and written to give you a wide exposure to all this equipment. So, we're not going to change that. We're not going to eliminate the unique odd objects, unique equipment and stuff like that. That becomes the coach and the owner's responsibility to kind of figure out how we're going to scale this, how we're going to modify it to still get the same stimulus.
Yeah, and we get these emails all the time. Like, feel free to ask us a quick question. We've done this before. We've done podcasts before on how to modify things, but you can always reach out to us on social media and just say, hey, I saw that tomorrow's sandbag cleans. We've done this before. You have another option, and we're more than happy to do that because we try to make sure that we write in the descriptions other ideas or other ways to modify it or what we're looking for here, so you have an idea of when you create your own scale or own modification that kind of fits in line with what we're going for. Cool. So to wrap this up, we did this with the end of the GPP. I'm going to do the same thing. Give me one reason why someone would want to use our competitor programming over the GPP.
I think one of the biggest things that members or that athletes and coaches report back to us that they like is the test retest thing. Members really like to have that test week, 4 to 5 training weeks, and then a retest week, verification that the program is working. They can see that progress. They have something to look forward to. They know what's coming up. People tend to actually like that predictability of the program. So that's, yeah.
That'd be your
what about you? Give me
My biggest thing, and I think I had a conversation with many affiliate over the years, is that people are super stoked when they can have one cohesive message at their gym. You don't have Bob in the corner doing something else, Steve doing something else, Mary doing something else.
Coach doing the competitor program.
Yeah, you have everybody on the same general program, and that builds a very strong community because you don't want to create that vibe in your gym. They're like, oh, they have something special over there because they're a special person, and I don't get that over here because I take class. We want everyone to feel like they're one big part of this message. The biggest identifier early on was like Misfit Athletics is like, we wore the purple, we wore the black, we were a little bit different, we did things a different way, and people latched on that identity. Well, people do the exact same thing in your affiliates. So if you guys can create one cohesive message and realize that this is our program and this is what we do, you're going to have a very happy community rather than, people grumbling about why is so much different.
Everyone's on the same page. We're all one team.
That's a huge thing for me, is just making sure everyone's on the same page, because that, again, builds a nice, strong community, which is the backbone of all of these gyms. Like, your gym needs to have a strong community before it needs shiny equipment or a special program. It needs to have that good community. So we're hoping to help you build that with this the programming.
Yeah. All right, guys. Hope this helps. Hope this explains the competitor program a little bit more. If you haven't, go over to the GPP page and check that out as well. We've got the same video just for the GPP program. Don't forget, check out kind of our coaches' tools to help you plan the classes. Those planning tools are really good, especially when you've got a little bit more volume to put into a workout. Planning ahead is a huge thing. Hope this helps. We'll see you guys around.
Thanks for watching.